Hello and welcome to another Solana tutorial. Today I'm gonna talk about basics, like if you're completely new to Solana, what you really need to know. It's mainly gonna be focused for new developers, but there's also certainly some knowledge for like regular non-technical people in here. Just go through it and get an impression. But if you are a dev and you've never worked with Solana before, this is the video for you. I've been working in this space for a while now. I mean, I created my first token in 2020, so hehe. And I feel somewhat qualified to talk about this. And I'm just gonna give you my quick guide how to get started on Solana, such that there's finally one video where you can really start your journey. Because, I mean, I've been making videos on this channel for a while, and I'm gonna point out some videos here and there. But today I just want to make a video for people who are new here, seeing that there is quite a few people joining the ecosystem right now. So I guess it's a good time for that. And also for the OGs here, and for the people who've been watching my videos for a while, maybe it's also a nice refresher. Maybe you also learn something new, or you're just here for the jokes, which I won't make. But yeah, let's just get to this, because I want this video to be somewhat short, less than an hour. And in this video, I'm gonna go through as much as I can of Solana development basics, how to get started. Since I am absolutely not prepared with anything, I'm gonna take inspiration from some workshops. There's a repository from Solana Foundation where they do workshops, and we're just gonna look at that, getting started with Solana. We're just gonna grab some inspiration from there, and I'm gonna talk my way through it somehow. Beginner's crash course. And then there are lots of other examples, like actually example projects that can be interesting if you really want to get started with like development. But here I just want to talk about really what even is Solana and why the hell would you want to develop here, and then what do you need to know to get started. So we're not going to develop in this video. I just want to show you around a bit. If I would really go through all of that, this is not going to be a short video. How Solana works. Privileged and confidential. This ain't confidential. This is on a public GitHub. Wait, this is on a public GitHub, right? So this presentation contains a lot of things, and I'm gonna cherry pick some important stuff, like an outline for why the hell Solana is even interesting. Right, we have those fast confirmation times and low transaction fees that everybody's talking about. But what the hell even is Solana? Maybe we should start with that. I don't want to start with, you know, those topics, because that's not basic at all, is it? What is Solana? Let's see. Solana.com. Well, that's a good source to define what Solana is. Powerful for developers and fast for everyone. Not fast for developers though, because chewing glass and all. Inside jokes. Don't start with inside jokes if you want to onboard people. Oh, by the way, if we onboard people, we do have memes here on Solana. One of them is chewing glass, which basically just says that development on Solana used to be quite difficult, like people had to chew glass, but it got like way better, because by now there's so much good documentation and programming examples out there, and deployed programs that you can compose with, which is another great advantage of Solana, that we can, you know, call other programs. And with runtime v2, that's gonna get even better. And I'm already talking about so many things that are not at all basic. Get to the basics, please. Okay, to the basics. It can't be so difficult to find just a made for mass adoption. I haven't been on this page. This is fun though. The total amount of transactions counted up quite fast. Decentralized, energy efficient, scalable. There's like, okay, and fast. Yes, of course it's fast. Of course, yeah. But what is it? Like, what is it? Like what is Solana? I mean, it's great that it's fast and energy efficient, and there are case studies, and Shopify wants to integrate it, and there are pretty people, but like, what is it now? So, okay, there we go. Solana is a blockchain with striking similarities to Ethereum. Okay. So we're getting somewhere. If you know Ethereum, then you have some reference. If you also don't know what Ethereum is, we might want to take another step back and explain what blockchains or DLTs are. But I guess we gotta have to start somewhere. What is Sol and how does Sol crypto work? This is not helpful. Google really is not helpful. Okay, I can understand how if you're new here, you like, this is why we need a video like this, where some guy is gonna explain what Solana really is and not just talk random stuff, which he has been doing for the past 10 minutes. Can I just let's not distract ourselves. Let's just, there we go. That's not a good background though, is it? That's the logo, by the way, in case you haven't seen that. And the colors are green and purple, which is one reason why I like it. Isn't that like a nice color? I kind of like the colors. Basics. Yes. Okay, I got this. So you can basically think of Solana as like this big database. If you're coming from Web 2, databases might be a thing that you've encountered. So just a place where you store data. Except it's not really data as you know from a relational database, like with like tables, but more like a bunch of blobs of bytes. Those blobs of bytes actually do have a format and hold specific data. So in a way, it actually is just a bit different. So yeah, there is definitely a storage aspect to it. I mean, Solana is branded as a state machine. It has state, so it stores something. And just the state itself can be seen, like a database. But it's way more than that. It's not just storing data. By the way, it's storing data in accounts. Account is a word that you will hear a lot if you hear in the Solana ecosystem, because essentially whatever you do, you work with accounts because all of the data is in accounts. So yeah, you can think of Solana as this globally synchronized database. And the cool thing about it, there's just one instant, one database, and everybody is reading and writing from the same database. Now, reading, okay, that's simple. You just look at what data is there. It's a public blockchain, so anybody can look at it. There are some privacy solutions and whatnot, but that's details. The writing, however, is more interesting, because not only do we have like a static database that can't be changed, that would be boring, we can actually, change the state, which makes it a state machine. Like we can have state transitions, which actually modify the state, aka write to the database. And this is done by so-called programs who are executed through transactions. So not only do we have the storage aspect, we also have a compute aspect. You can think of that like a cloud computing thing, like your solution that you might be used from Google or Amazon Cloud or whatever. So we can run something in the cloud or on Solana, and the result of that will be a state transition. So we will change our database by calling such a program. So there are these programs that can write to their accounts, aka update our database. Cool. Why is that cool? Well, if everybody has the same state, then we don't need to worry about, synchronizing stuff in different instances or synchronizing several servers around the world or whatever, right? That's a cool aspect. Another cool aspect, we don't need to deploy our own servers anywhere. We can just write our program, so say what we want to do, put it on Solana, and then run it there, which is basically like running it in the cloud. It's running on the validators. We'll get to that in a second. So yeah, basically you can replace your backend with Solana. And that's quite cool, I think. You don't need to host your own server. You don't even need to host a cloud computing instance. You can just do it all on Solana. Have storage and compute from there. Both of which might be more expensive than what you might be used to from like cloud computing, but therefore it's globally synchronized. And you might combine it with other storage solutions or compression or something that makes it a lot cheaper. Okay, am I doing a good job selling this? Maybe not. My whole point here is we have compute and storage both in this system that we call Solana. It's a distributed system and it's a decentralized system as well. So let's look into the details of that a bit. So let's look at this network. of Solana. There is no one central identity that provides you with the service like Amazon or Google would do, but Solana is made up of several entities that all work together to sync this state, the so-called validators. Validators are the guys who store all of that state and are responsible for keeping that state valid, just allowing changes that are, how would you say, valid, where all the signatures are present and whatever, but that is going into the technical details. So basically, those are the ones who have this database of accounts, like they store the state and they synchronize it amongst them. Cool, so how does that work? We have like timing slots, and for every slot there is a leader. A leader is the one that is allowed to suggest changes. So if transactions are coming in, and transactions, that's what users like you and me might submit to Solana, the cluster of validators. Transactions are what we can send to change the state. So that transaction contains the information what should be changed and also the signatures from those accounts that are allowed to make those changes. The leader in their slot, when it's time for them to produce blocks, the leader takes those transactions and puts them into a block. So the leader can then suggest those state transitions in a block. Do we need to talk about what a blockchain is? Nah, for all intents and purposes, I will not talk about that. Basically, we put the blocks after each other and then we're not going to explain what a blockchain is. So this leader suggests a block, and then the other validators validate that block. So they vote if that was a correct state transition. Like, are all the signatures present? Was all the logic executed correctly? Were there any other like runtime errors or something? Did all the sol change correctly? Whatever. So the validators vote, and through voting, blocks get confirmed, and then they are persisted in the state. So if the validators say, yeah, that's a valid block, they take the state update and therefore also update their state. So that's how we synchronize the state among validators. So far so good, but how do those transactions manage to get to the leader? There's a step before that, another service called the RPC, remote procedure call, which is usually another server running somewhere who is like a validator, except it's not voting on transactions. We have an RPC client who also has their state, but it's not voting on any transactions. It just has the state such that it can serve information to a client. Like if somebody wants to read the state, like read from the blockchain, can do an RPC call and serve that request, or also take incoming transactions. So if a client says, hey, I want to send that transactions to have this state changed, they send it to the RPC, and the RPC then forwards it to a validator. So to the next leader, which then can, put that transaction into a block and have this state changed. The way how users interact with the blockchain is through wallets. And I'm not gonna pick favorites here because different wallets do different things. You can try them out, which one you like best. The big ones, Phantom, Solfware, and Backpack, all have their advantages and disadvantages. Backpack is source available. Solfware, I judge, is quite fast and good for devs. Phantom really has usability and user security as a focus. Right, you gotta pick the one that you like best. Anyway, so a wallet is what holds the user's funds, right? For instance, here on this one, I have a bit of Sol, like a tiny amount of Solana. No, it's Sol, it's not Solana. Don't say it's Solana, it's Sol. Sol is the native token of Solana, denoted, by the way, in lamperts, which is a billionth of a Sol. So 0.17 Sol would actually be 170 million lamperts. 7 more zeros here. That would be the amount in lamperts. Internally in our database, that's how it's stored, in lamperts. Lamperts are the basis points for Sol. Yeah, so in any case, the wallet displays me what other shitcoins I have in my wallet, or also what collectibles I have, like this nice monkey, for instance. So yeah, all a wallet does is displaying nicely to the user what assets it has in this database of Solana. Because all of that really is just accounts. In fact, the wallet itself is also an account. And let's have a look at that in an Explorer, because an Explorer is your gateway to the blockchain, like for looking at what's in the state of the blockchain. And again, as with the wallets, there are many different Explorers. I'm gonna show you a few that I know. Solscan, Solana FM, X-Ray. And again, different Explorers are good at different things. That's why there are different ones out there. If there was one best, then the others would hopefully stop existing. But yeah, the Explorer that's maintained by Solana Labs themselves, still my favorite Explorer, mainly because it's most low level. Let's see, for instance, here, this spam transaction that minted me a C NFT. I like it because I can, see all of the instruction data quite low level, and most of the time it does a pretty good job at parsing stuff. So for development, I mostly still use the explorer.solana.com. Solscan, I quite like it because it neatly aggregates like sol transfers and token transfers, and it's just also really nice for, displaying NFTs. Like for instance, my SMB here, I can just neatly see the metadata and stuff. So for NFTs, I used Solscan a lot. Solana FM is nice because it shows those transitions of accounts. Here, for instance, when I bought my SMB, here we see where the money flows from which account to which other accounts in like those more graphic things. 333 Sol, that's how much I paid for that monkey. Yeah. I mean, it's nice, but personally, I don't really use that one. X-Ray is pretty cool for CNFTs. For now, literally the only one that actually tells me this is a NFT mint, compressed NFT mint. But yeah, me personally, I'm still a vanilla Solana Explorer fan. I still mostly use this one. So yeah, anyway, you can put an account or a transaction ID in here, and then it will find you the thing that you're searching for. For instance, the account of that wallet that holds some data. In this case, here we see the exact amount of Lamperts or Sol. By the way, this is the sign for Sol in case you've never seen that, the double O. This is how much money I actually have on that account, or how much Sol I actually have on that account. And those like normal wallet accounts are always owned by the system program. So the system program is a special program, and we have talked about program ownership. I'm gonna put a link here to another video where I go into more detail what that even means, that an account is owned by a program. But here I just wanna discuss what a program even is. A program, that's the smart contract that you might know from Ethereum, a thing that you can call to change the state. So a program is also nothing else than an account, but it holds executable data, like it holds the bytecode for, executing stuff. And then a transaction can, call the program, and then the state is updated according to the rules of the program. And that's what we as Solana devs do. We write the programs that update the state. That's among the things we do. That's the on-chain programming. We also can do a lot of stuff off-chain by just calling existing programs. But yeah, anyway, so there are some special programs like the system program, which is Solana native. That's why it has this nice address of all zeros. And that system program is responsible for creating accounts and assigning them to other programs and transferring Sol from an address that is owned by the system program. So it has the transfer function. So if I wanted to transfer some of my Sol somewhere else, I would need to send a transaction that has an instruction to the system program. Okay, and then I could send from that account to somewhere else. Let's maybe have a look at that. So how does it work? Because that's also a bit special on Solana, and I think we have slides for that. Yes, instructions. Or actually, maybe we go through accounts and stuff as well. Let's recap accounts. Those addresses that we saw, this address here, for instance, that is basically just 32 bytes encoded as base 58, and that represents an address of the account. So that's how we reference the account. That's where it is stored on Solana or in our database. If we know the address, we know what data to get. Yeah, they can hold some sol and they can store arbitrary data. They don't have to, but they can have allocated memory for storing bytes. But the more you want to store, the more rent in sol you need to deposit such that you're allowed to have that account be that big. And now this is interesting because anybody can put sol onto any account, but only the account themselves, the account's owner, is allowed to debit, so remove lamperts, or also modify the data, so write to that account. Only the owning program is allowed to do that. In the case of our regular account, that would be the system program. So we need to call the system program if we want to transfer sol. If I want to transfer sol onto this account, I can do that from my other program from anywhere. This is free, right? I can put lamperts on any kind of account except the system program or other non-writable account. But again, this is going into very much detail. So here we see which fields each account has, the address itself, although it doesn't really hold that, so that might be a bit misleading. It has lamperts, it might have data. Every account has a flag if it's executable. We need that for programs and which program owns the account. I have other videos where I go into details, especially the Solana development course. I encourage you to check that out. Wrong side. I encourage you to check that out where we discuss this at length and with a bit more time. So programs, those are now the ones that change the state or that can change the state, but they themselves are stateless. A program doesn't have variables on Solana, but it can reference accounts that store values. To make a program change the data, we need to call an instruction on the program, and an instruction basically we need to tell it which program do we want to call. So a program, as we said, is again an account on Solana, so we need to give it the account ID, so the program ID. The keys, maybe a bit misleading in the term, that's again accounts. Which accounts do we reference in this instruction? That's also a Solana specific thing where we need to upfront know which accounts are modified or read in this instruction. That's just the architecture of Solana because it allows to parallelize a lot of things if they don't work on the same state. So for each account, we also need to say if we want to write to it and if it is a signer. What a signer is, we'll get to in a second. And then we can have arbitrary instruction data, so just a bit of bytes that the program might expect. You know, like when you call a function, you might want to have parameters. That's what that is. Yep. And then to actually, you know, send those instructions, you put them into a transaction. So a transaction contains several instructions or none. You can send one with 0 instructions, that also works, but you usually want to add instructions to a transaction, usually at least one. A recent block hash, this is for the deprecation, basically that you don't send the same transaction, you know, twice accidentally because of network traffic, so to keep it unique. And also such that old transactions that you signed a long time ago are not valid anymore. It always has to use this recent block hash. And the recent block hash is literally a block hash, so the hash of a block that one validator produced and that is valid and is not like older than 512 blocks or something like that. Or was it 512 slots? Anyway, so it must be somewhat recent. I think 2 minutes or so. That is also something that we usually get from our RPC. So we request, hey, what's a recent block hash? Dear RPC, give me a recent block hash. And then it sends us that, and then we put that into our transaction and then sign it. Each transaction next to the instructions also has the fee payer. So this is the account that pays for the transaction fee because transactions are not executed for free. Transactions is what gives you the compute because, programs are called. So that's, compute. So you gotta pay for that. So somebody gotta fee pay. That's what is commonly known as gas, more on Ethereum than on Solana. I like to say transaction fee. And then very important, the signers. So that's an array of signatures. So really it's the signatures, not signers, that we put into that transaction, because every account where we want to remove the imports from, we need to sign that that's allowed. So that account, the fee payer, for instance, needs to sign that transaction and thereby allow that the state of this account should get changed. Okay, so we heard about accounts, we heard about programs, and we heard about transactions. This, by the way, is a bunch of transaction signatures. So again, we can also search for transaction signatures. That, by the way, is the actual signature of the fee payer of this transaction. You can also refer to it as the transaction ID, but really it's the signature of the first signer. That's also something that I only learned after a long time in Solana development, that that's the actual signature. But yeah, basically if we look at such a transaction, we can see the result. So that can be either success or failure. If it's a failure, then none of the state is persisted, with some exceptions of durable nonces. And I have a video on durable nonces somewhere. But usually if the transaction fails, then it's all rolled back and none of the state is actually persisted. Only if the transaction succeeds, so all of the instructions in the transaction actually succeed, then the entire transaction succeeds, because transactions are atomic. But if it's successful, then the state is actually persisted. So whatever was changed during the execution of the programs is actually saved in the state. What else is relevant here? Here we see a recent block hash from that time, and in the details we see all of the accounts that were involved. So there were 19 accounts involved, and Explorer then neatly displays the changes. That's also why I like the Explorer. And it tells us which one of those were signers and which ones were writable. So this one, my account, was a signer and writable and also the fee payer. So the first signer. Then further down here, you see the actual instructions. So the program M2, so that's Magic Eden, was called, and that again called, so the program did a CPI, it called another program with a system program transfer from my account to some other address, this amount of sol. And because I signed, the system program allows this. Yeah, and then we proceeded with the next instruction, the buy, which then actually transferred me the token, this token, to my token account. So that's my token account. This mint, so that's my monkey. That's done by a different program, the token program, which is also a commonly used program. It's not Solana native though. Well, kinda. It's a user space program. So it has been deployed, but it's officially maintained by Solana Labs and at that point immutable. So maybe let's talk about the token program as well, because tokens are one of the relevant things on Solana. Because the cool thing is, on Solana, you don't need to deploy your own program every time you create a token. There is one program, or actually several at that point, that allow you to work with tokens. And the basic one is the token program. There's now a new token program called Token 2022. Name might still change, where I also have a bunch of videos on that. But in general, a token program also just works with accounts. Again, on Solana, everything is an account. So if we create a token, we create an account called the mint account, and that basically represents the token. Now, if my wallet wants to, hold those tokens, I need yet another account, the so-called associated token account. Really, I just need any token account, but it's good practice to use the associated token program to derive the associated token account, which is a PDA, which we did not talk about yet, which is another very important concept in Solana development. And I think I'm just gonna reference yet another video about PDAs, because yeah, that deserves its own video. Basically, it's a way to deterministically specify one fixed address given by a list of seeds and a program. So if you have the same seeds and the same program, it will always be the same account, which can be used for many different things. Actually, let's quickly step through it there. And basically, it allows us that a program can then sign for that account as well. But really, we didn't even say what signing even is. Even that basic we are lacking, and we will totally get there. First, let me go through the thing with the tokens though. So we said we have this associated token account. Yeah, basics in Solana is really not that simple, is it? Because there's so much, and if I want to fit it all in 1 hour, this is tough. So essentially, we create another account that then belongs to our wallet and can hold the balance of a certain mint. So this token account stores which token and how many of them does this wallet own. That's what we saw here as well. For instance, I got some place. Why not? My account holds that many, and that's the token account. So my wallet has an address and my token account is yet another address, because all of that is state and therefore lives in an account. And then we can also have metadata, either with a metadata program from Metaplex or some other metadata program, but that's less important now. How to mint the token. That's actually my first ever Solana video that I made back in 2020. If you want to create your Joe token, that's how you do it. Yeah, don't want to go into the token program too much. It is a very important program though. Yeah, let's talk about the associated token program though, because I said seeds, what even is that? It's basically just a list of bytes, and in this case the bytes are made up of the wallet address itself, because obviously for a different wallet we want a different token account, the token program we put in there, because there can be different token programs, and the mint address, so which token it is. And as soon as one of those changes, the token account will be different. But if all of them are the same, then we get the same token account again. So we just have one associated token account for each wallet and mint and token program. That just makes it easier to work with, because in the early days when they were at random addresses, it was just a mess. Anyway, so what we saw here, a program calling the token program to initialize such an ATA and then transfer a token into this ATA, so one token into this destination. And at the very bottom we find the logs, so that's the output of the program, like the log output, which is different to the return value. A program can also have a return value, but yeah, where do we go from here? The point of me showing you this is that you can do stuff on Solana without deploying your own program, like stuff with a token program, or even just with the system program. And to show you, by the way, I can recommend that you have a look at the Solana docs. This is definitely helpful if you want to get started. And the CLI, this is what I'm going to have a look at now. You can follow these steps to install it, but that's so self-explanatory that I'm not going to go into that. I'm just gonna get myself a command line and type Solana to display that yes, I have it installed. And with Solana, the CLI, we can do a bunch of cool things like request the balance of a certain account, like the one that we've been looking at. There we go. Then we also see that amount of SOL. So I have 165,510,768 lamperts. We can get more information on the account, not just the balance, but also who owns it, if it's executable. So in the background, that does RPC requests and returns me the result. Now let's do another thing that is very good to know and that I like to do. Solana keygen. And I always like to create myself vanity addresses, not new ones. So I say grind. You can also say new, but I prefer to grind, and then say it should start with, I don't know, letter A, B, and C, just as a demo. And I want one address that starts with those 3 letters. And then it gives me a key pair that starts with ABC. That's just nice for me to keep track of wallets. Like that's my ABC wallet, whatever that is. Or that's my demo wallet. demo. I usually only do like 3 or 4 letters, depending on which one I'm starting with in coding's video. Anyway, so now we have those 2 key pairs and they are, you know, stored here on disk. I can now tell the CLI to use that key pair by saying Solana config set -k and then my ABC. Then it will use that. So far we've been working on mainnet, and this, by the way, is the RPC URL. So which RPC is it gonna send the request to if I do stuff like Solana balance? ABC currently has a balance of 0 sol on mainnet. There are 3 clusters. So mainnet is the regular Solana one, or mainnet beta is what it's officially called still. When do we get out of beta? Well, we don't know. And then the 2 others are devnet, which you might want to use for trying out your programs, where it's like a environment for testing, like user space programs. And then there's testnet, the 3rd cluster. That's mainly for validators to do some load tests and test new versions of the validators and test feature flags and all those things. So you as a Solana dev don't want to mess around with testnet, but you might want to play with devnet. So you can say Solana config set cluster to devnet. That's the long way to write it. The short way would be this, which then sets the RPC automatically to the public one of devnet. And here we also still have 0 sol, but we can request an airdrop of up to 5 sol. Shit, limit is reached. Okay, good that on some random address somewhere I have some sol. Let's pretend that the airdrop worked, which for you it should, hopefully, if you're not rate limited like I am, because I'm requesting too much. We now have a balance of 1 sol. And then we can use the Solana CLI to transfer stuff. Transfer, we need to say where do we transfer to, for instance, to the demo wallet. So basically we just put in the address where we want to send to, and then how much we want to send, I don't know, 0.1 sol. Execute that, and because there's no sol on that account, we also need to say allow unfunded recipient. And then it's sending this transaction. So this is now the signature of the transaction, which we can have a look at on here. We want to switch to devnet though, because we're now working on devnet. If we have a look at it here, we see, cool, it is a successful transaction where basically those 2 accounts and the system program was involved. And there's just one instruction, a system program transfer, which transferred 0.1 sol from this address to this address. That's all there is. So we see a transaction with an instruction, and that is the signature. How did we get to that signature? Well, the CLI also did that for us. It built that transaction with the correct accounts, the block hash and everything. And then it took that message of the transaction, you know, remember message was this part with the instructions, reason, block hash, fee pair and so on. And then it did public key cryptography to create the signature. So basically taking the bytes of the message and just doing a signature algorithm. I always forget the name of it, the ED25519. So it does this algorithm, and then we get this 64 byte signature, which is then encoded in base 58 and looks like this. That's a signature. So that's one way how we can sign for an account. Another way is PDAs. So that's when we don't sign with a private key like the one stored in this file. Side note, don't show your private keys to other people unless you're not using them or just using them for demo purposes and then throw them away. So those are 64 bytes private key. That's a valid private key on that curve. And with that, we can sign stuff. We can sign transactions. That's how a user would sign. If a program needs to sign something, again, we can use PDAs, but I think PDAs are gonna be a topic for another video that I already made at some point. This one is just to give you a nice overview of many of the things that you might want to know when you start out in Solana. I hope that this was somewhat helpful and got you a basic idea of where to get started. Actually, maybe that's a good point to point out some other nice resources. Next to the Solana docs, I can also highly recommend the Solana cookbook, which has a bunch of tutorials where you can read up on stuff like the accounts model and the PDAs and the CPIs. So CPIs are when programs call other programs. We mentioned that on the side. And yeah, this was very still high level. Do you have other resources? Solana.com/developers. That I can also recommend. Like we have boot camps, video series, coding schools, just a bunch of things, tutorials and guides. And of course, my own videos. There are a bunch here on this channel. If you're interested in a topic, just search for it and hopefully it comes up. If it doesn't come up, tell me that I should make a video about it. But yeah, I hope that this video gave you a little bit of an overview of what Solana even is, how to think about it, and how to really get started. Now starts your journey. Now is where it really starts for you to, read through some docs, watch some more videos, and try stuff out yourself. And I'll be here making more videos about more topics. But for many of my new videos, you require some base knowledge of Solana. So that's why I once again wanted to take a step back and talk a bit more about the simple stuff to get more people started out quickly. And then we can dive into the more interesting and more challenging topics together. I'm looking forward to that. And until then, happy learning. Enjoy your Solana development journey. But what did I forget though? Like, I'm pretty sure I forgot like a bunch of stuff. I did talk about the CLI. I did talk about wallets. I did talk about explorers. I did give a basic overview on like validators and that stuff and RPCs. What else do you really need to know? I think that's pretty good actually. I think that covers most of it. That should at least give a good overview, and from there people can then find their way around, hopefully by themselves. At least that's my idea. Did I mention that the wallets then interact with the RPCs? They're just some of those things that are so obvious to me that I don't even mention them anymore. That's why I always need to take a step back and be like, hey, that's not obvious to everybody. So yeah, those wallets basically build transactions for you and then submit it to an RPC, which then forwards it to the validator to do the state change. Same as the CLI. The CLI is also nothing else but a file system wallet. Yeah, few details I forgot maybe, and that's okay. If there's still something that confuses you, please let me know. Please tell me you didn't do a good job explaining that. I'm new here and I just don't get it. Because then I know that next time I need to explain that in more detail or differently. So yeah, challenge to you. Tell me one thing that confuses you about Solana in the comments, because that might be a good video to make. Debunking confusions, common pitfalls in Solana development. That's another upcoming video. So yeah, subscribe and like, and I'll see you in my upcoming videos.